What's up, Internet? This is Rambling Josh, and today for this episode of Ramblings, I was a little bit conflicted on what exactly I want to talk about today. I got a couple of ideas that I think are pretty good for topics to kind of discuss, but truth be told, I'm feeling a little bit lazy the last few days, and I think kind of the fact that the last couple of weeks I spent marathon hardcore gaming, like playing Skyrim and then Skyward Sword, kind of wore me out a little bit. So I haven't really had the time to kind of flesh out these ideas in my head as well as I would like to. I mean, I don't like pre-script out any of these episodes or anything like that. It's all kind of off the cuff. But I do like to kind of at least develop the ideas in my head a little bit, so I kind of have an idea what I want to say. Um, I just haven't really had the chance to do that. I'd just be kind of making up everything as I go, and I don't think that would be exactly the best way to do things, so I'm not going to do that. I also kind of really wanted to do a review for Skyward Sword because I beat that this Sunday, and I really want to talk about it, but I'm having a really hard time kind of compartmentalizing what exactly is me being a fanboy and what exactly is like legitimately good gameplay and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a huge Zelda fanboy, so it's kind of hard for me to look at it subjectively at this point. So I think I kind of need a little bit of time to take a step back and let it kind of stew a little bit, so I can kind of look at it a little bit more subjectively. But that's coming eventually. Probably, hopefully next week. I guess we'll see next week. So, anyways, instead, what I want to talk about today is a concept that's kind of I throw around in my head a little bit from time to time, and that's the idea of owning a game more than once. And I don't necessarily mean, I own a copy of Final Fantasy VII, so, let's buy another copy of Final Fantasy VII. I mean more in terms of, different versions of the game, or like remakes or re-releases or whatever. It's been a really popular kind of trend over the last I guess it's been not just being the last few years that they've been doing it, but it's been very much growing over the past several years. It's just re-releasing games and stuff, and I guess it works. I mean, I guess it makes I'm a good enough example that it makes them money, so why not, right? But I mean, I think the idea, at least years ago, was always that it just makes no sense to buy a game that you already own. But at the same time, I found myself over the years kind of coming across a good few situations where it kind of makes sense to own more than once the same game. So I figured I would kind of go over the games that I already own multiples of, and kind of give a little bit of story time on the game, kind of say, why I own the game more than once and stuff like that. And just kind of in the interest of full disclosure, I did write kind of a post about this on my website. It's probably like 2 years ago by this point. That's on my old website. I actually just let the domain expire just a couple days ago, so you can't like go read it anymore or anything. But if somehow you happen to come across that article in the past, I didn't steal the idea. It was my idea. Not that anyone is really likely to care a whole lot. But I think by this point in time, I've actually probably got a lot more games that are repeats to talk about, and I think kind of talking about going over, like doing it in like a video like this where I have a little bit more freedom to talk and kind of do like story mode. I think it's likely to make it a little bit more enjoyable. At least it's probably going to be more fun for me to kind of reminisce about, anyways. So yeah, let's get this party started. So if we look here, I got kind of my, I mean that's not all my collection, but that's sort of it. It's just kind of sitting on a desk in my room here. So I want to start off with the cartridge-based games, because all my disc-based games are somewhere else. So we of course have the N64 right there. Ogre Battle 64. The only game I ever actually use the N64 anymore. I'm of course working on my LP of Ogre Battle 64 right now. It's a great game. Love it. Anyways, I want to start with Ocarina of Time, because that's probably my most proliferous game. So if we look in the top drawer here, I don't think I actually have the cartridge here. No, it's not in here, but I got the box here for the original N64 version of the game. It's not a gold cartridge or anything, but it's a good, almost 14 years old, regardless of whatever color it is. So, Ocarina of Time is a big reason I actually got an N64, because like I said, I'm a huge Zelda fan, and, I kind of have to get every new Nintendo console just for the eventual, inevitable Zelda game that comes out for it. That's just the way I work. But, yeah, I mean, for the longest time, Ocarina of Time was actually the only N64 game I really had that was even really worth playing. But, yeah, so I own that. And then the first instance of a repeat would be this bad boy right here. And this is the Ocarina of Time and Master's Quest 2-disc promotional, or 2-game. Is it 1 disc? Can't remember. Yeah, it's 1 disc. It's a promotional disc, and that was released as a pre-order bonus for Wind Waker. So the story behind that's kind of interesting, because like I said, I kind of follow the Nintendo consoles for Zelda. So for the longest time, I didn't own a GameCube. I didn't really see much reason to, until Wind Waker was announced. So I knew that, once that was kind of coming around, that I would need to get a GameCube. So I pre-ordered Wind Waker, pretty much specifically because I wanted that bonus disc. And if you're not aware, Master's Quest, what that is kind of like a remix of Ocarina of Time. I believe it was originally released on the Nintendo 64 DD, it was called. I'm not quite sure what that stands for. I don't think it stands for disk drive. I could be wrong on that. But it was like an expansion for the N64. I don't think it ever made it outside of Japan. It basically flopped. But basically the Master's Quest took all the dungeons in the game and kind of redid them so that they're kind of harder and just different and stuff. So I was pretty interested in that, because of course for a very long time I was very into Ocarina of Time, even though I only ever beat it once. I played through the first 3 to 5 dungeons, dozens of times, but that water temple, that's a bit of a sticking point. Even with, I have over here, is it there? I've got the original, I think it's up here somewhere. I got the original strategy guide for it. And even with that strategy guide, I always had a huge trouble with that water temple. I even tried playing through Ocarina of Time a few years ago. And even, as, an older person, that last key, I just couldn't, I didn't have it in me to tough it out. But, what was I even talking about? Master's Quest, I guess? Right, I ended up pre-ordering Wind Waker before I actually owned a GameCube. And they did this really weird thing for the promotional disc, where they had us come in beforehand, before Wind Waker was actually released, and pick up the promotional disc. I'm not sure why they did that, but they did. So what ended up happening was I actually had this GameCube game, Ocarina of Time and Master's Quest, but I didn't have a GameCube to play it on. So I ended up picking up this game before I even had a GameCube. So anyways, next on the list is right beneath it, funny how that works out, is the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition, which that was another promotional disc, I believe. I'm pretty sure that one was a bundle that they released for. At one point, they had a bundle where if you bought the GameCube, it came with that. And of course, by that time, I already had a GameCube, so there wasn't a whole lot of point in. Like, it wasn't something I could really get. But somehow my parents managed to find a used version of it, and they gave it to me for Christmas one day. And to this day, I'm not really sure how they managed that, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't... yeah, actually, it says right there, not for resale. So, I don't know if EB Games was kind of breaking some rules or something, but I was pretty happy with it. Actually, let's see. On the back of the case here, this collector's edition, I don't know how well you can actually see that, but it comes with the... Whoa, there we go, that's a little bit better, isn't it? That comes with the original Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2 Adventures of Link, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. It also comes with a demo of Wind Waker, but that's neither here nor there, since by that time Wind Waker was kind of already out. But anyways, that thing, I was pretty happy to get it because I did not own the other 3 games. Of course, I already owned Ocarina of Time twice by the time I got this, so I didn't really care a whole lot about that. But the other 3 games I didn't own, so I was pretty glad to get this. It completed my collection of the console Zelda games. I still to this day don't own Adventures of Link, Link's Awakening or the Oracle's games. But with this thing, I got all the console games, and that made me pretty happy. Now it's not necessarily. It's kind of this is kind of a side note. It's not a game that I own a second of, but the original Zelda. I own it on this collection, of course, but my sister actually owns the Game Boy Advance release of the game, because at one point they did a whole series where they like released a slew of Nintendo classics on the Game Boy Advance. Like I think they did like Super Mario Bros. And or not Super Metroid, but Metroid and stuff like that. So it was actually originally my aunt's. She bought herself a Game Boy Advance SP and a bunch of games, and she didn't end up playing it all. So I already had a Game Boy Advance SP, so she ended up giving it all to my sister, and she doesn't play it either. But whatever. So it's not a game that I own, but if I wanted to, and if anyone had any idea where it actually was, there are 2 copies of the original Legend of Zelda in the house somewhere. So I guess that's about it. Or no, that's not it at all. There is one more version of Ocarina of Time that I guess I technically own, but unfortunately it's not something that I can kind of show you at the moment. I recently ordered, I bought the Zelda 3DS bundle that was recently released for North America. And the story behind that is like, way back, I mean this is starting at like the very beginning of the story, but way back when the original DS was released, I bought myself, in one December with my birthday money, I bought myself the DS because I thought the technology was amazing and I had huge potential and stuff, and I didn't end up having any games to play for a very long time. It was basically a full year. It was the next year I got Final Fantasy III for my birthday. That was basically the first game I had, except for the Metroid Prime Hunters demo that came with the DS. So I went a really long time without any DS games to actually play. Of course, now I've got like you can see my tower of DS games there. There's like a bajillion of them. So, when it came to the 3DS, I mean, I knew I was going to get one eventually because Nintendo consoles are always really good at having lots of really high quality games that are also pretty cheap compared to like the current console games. And one of the things I always really like too is that they're also kind of retro and more classic style games, which is something that I really tend to like. But I mean, that's kind of more my taste in games, I think, than anything. But that's kind of getting even more off topic than I already am. So the point is, when the 3DS was released, I said I wasn't going to buy one. I was going to wait. Originally, I said I was going to wait for a pre-order bonus or something with Ocarina of Time 3DS because, of course, the way it ended up working out was Ocarina of Time didn't end up coming until a couple of months after the 3DS was actually released. So I was hoping for some sort of pre-order bonus for Ocarina of Time, something to really kind of sell the system, but that never really came, at least not in North America. I think all we ended up getting here was like a poster or something. But then, I guess it's probably about a month ago, we caught wind of this Zelda 3DS bundle that I think was revealed for Australia first, or something like that. And I basically just said then and there, I mean, that is awesome, and I am going to own that if it ever comes to North America. So eventually it was revealed for North America, so I bought it. So it'll be nice to finally replace, I think I've got it in here. Open up you. Yep. I've been rocking this big fat behemoth for God knows how long. Finally, it'd be nice to finally replace that with something a little bit more attractive and a little bit more less weight, and I can't think of a better candidate than this like sleek black like Zelda Triforce 3DS thing. So anyways, that's I don't actually have that 3DS yet. I should by now, but I think it ran into like some problems with shipping or something, so I don't I don't happen to have it on hand right now, which is kind of unfortunate, but what are you gonna do? So anyways, moving on. Actually, I might as well show you this thing that's sitting right there. It's a neat little Hylian shield thing that originally, like it opens up, originally it contained a bunch of mints and stuff. It's not related at all, but it's sitting there and I'm talking about Zelda, so why not? So anyways, moving on, in here, I've got Quest 64. This is, of course, not the original packaging by any means. I actually picked up the game used from, I think it was from a Blockbuster somewhere. And it's kind of understandable why they would be selling it off. It's kind of a terrible game, although I always kind of enjoyed it. I always thought it was a little bit better than it got credit for, but that's neither here nor there. And I think this box was originally the box that my Game Boy Color here came in, so I just kind of repurposed it. The cartridge isn't in here, but yeah. So the reason I bring that up is because I have in here my collection of Game Boy games, and this one right here is Quest Brian's Journey. And I didn't even know it when I bought it, but it's basically the exact same game as Quest 64. I mean, it's in 2D, but I mean, it's the exact same story, the exact same characters, the exact same locations, the exact same mechanics, the exact same enemies. It's basically the exact same game in 2D. And it's actually ended up being way better than Quest 64, ironically enough. So I consider that the same game. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. Moving on. What's this? That's not what I'm looking for. I also own here Pokemon Red and Pokemon Yellow, which, I mean, those are technically the same game, right? I mean, that's just something that Pokemon's always kind of done. They release multiple the same game in a couple different versions that are just different enough that they try and goad you into buying both colors. I don't think that actually ends up working anymore, especially not these days. But yeah, so they do that, and then eventually they release like the ultimate version or whatever, which is what yellow was. So I got Pokemon Red first, and then down the line when Yellow came out, that was all a big thing. I think it was a lot bigger than it ever was when they released like Crystal or Emerald or Platinum. Was Platinum the ultimate version or whatever you want to call it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know Pokemon the more recent very well. Pokemon was big when I was young, but I haven't followed it very closely at all for several years now. I actually still have my collection of Pokemon cards knocking around here somewhere. But anyways, so yeah, I own those two games. I mean, I was always pretty. It worked out pretty well, I thought. I mean, I got a ton of playtime out of Pokemon Red, and then Pokemon Yellow was kind of like a fresh new start. I mean, Pokemon was a game that I played through like dozens of times anyways. Like, I literally started a new game like every week. I don't know why, it was like an obsession. So, I mean, I got plenty of time out of both cartridges, so, I mean, they're not that different, but, I mean, I enjoyed having them both. So now, I'm pretty sure with those out of the way, I don't have any more kind of cartridge-based games that I have repeats of. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change positions here a little bit, and I'm going to grab this thing. And this was, for several years, kind of my lifeblood. Because this is where I keep all of, or at least almost all of my PS1 and PS2 games. I think I ended up taking out a couple games that, like I ended up running out of room or something. But yeah, so most of my repeat games, at least one of the versions of it are going to be in here. So I'm just going to kind of flip through here and see what there is to see. So, let's see. So, to start off, let's see, we got Shadow of the Colossus. So that's a good one to start off with, although it does mean that I have to change positions again a little bit. So if we come in here, we got kind of my main base of operations, and over here we got the PS3, and you can see right there, the Ico and Shadow of the Colossus collection. That's actually in the PS3 as we speak, or as I speak, anyways. So that's a good one. I mean, Shadow of the Colossus, it's a great collection. I mean, I never actually played Ico, and I always wanted to. So I mean, that's a great opportunity. But more importantly, like, Shadow of the Colossus is an amazing game. Like, it could be like one of the best-selling games of all time, and I still don't think that would be enough credit. Like, I honestly kind of tend to think that it's that good. So, I don't know. I mean, I was very glad to hear about the collection, both because it means I can play Ico now, and because, I mean, honestly, I was kind of glad to have another chance to give my money to Team Ico, because they do some good shit. So let's see, what else we got here? Final Fantasy X. That's not a repeat game, but they, I mean, at least not yet. They announced at, I believe it was the Tokyo Game Show this year, that they're going to be re-releasing Final Fantasy X in HD. For the PS3 and the Vita. So, that's not a repeat game yet, but I love Final Fantasy X. Of course, I already did an LP of it as my very first one. It's probably my favorite main series Final Fantasy game. So, I mean, buying the HD re-release is kind of a no-brainer for me, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm especially kind of hoping that they remaster it, and because I would absolutely love to have kind of some of the international version of the game. I would love to have like some of those things in like a legitimate North American release. Namely, like the Masters, Sphere Grid, and the Dark Aeons and stuff like that. I would love to see those in a legitimate North American release. And trophies too. Like I would love to have a trophy to say, hey, look, I killed Penance. Here's my trophy. But yeah, so there's that. I thought I had in here somewhere. I'll probably get to it eventually, anyways. Well, whatever. Well, here's one. Final. I don't know how well you can actually see that. Final Fantasy Origins. So that, of course, is the PS1 release of Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2. And that was the first time Final Fantasy 2 came to North America. They've both, of course, been re-released a plethora of times, but this is the first time I actually owned, or in fact, the first time I ever played either game. The only other place I own either game actually is on the iOS. It's on my iPod here, which unfortunately is what I'm using to record right now, so I can't exactly show that to you. But maybe I'll find a way to like take a picture or something. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot I can really say about either game. I mean, if you want my full thoughts, you should take a look at the beginning of my Final Fantasy retrospective video. But I mean, I was glad to own them on the iOS. I mean, it was a nice chance to kind of replay them, and I'm not super sure about how much I like the re-release of them or whatever, like how well it was done and stuff like that. But I mean, it's fun to have them on the go and stuff. My only real problem with it is that they're not really the kind of game that works super well with like picking them up just kind of here and there, because it's really easy to kind of lose where you are and what you got to do next. But that's more of a personal problem than anything. Okay, so here's getting to the good stuff here. Okay, well, that's Final Fantasy Anthology, though I don't actually own either of those games a second time. But here we have Final Fantasy Chronicles. So we have on the top here Chrono Trigger, so I might as well start with that. The Chrono Trigger is actually an intriguing game because, I mean, it's one of those games that I never really had the chance to actually play on the SNES, but at the same time, like, it's just an amazing game. Like, I don't think I've ever talked to anyone who didn't like Chrono Trigger. I mean, there might be people out there who don't like RPGs and stuff who don't like it, but, I don't really tend to associate with those people a whole lot, so, there's that. But, I mean, Chrono Trigger's got to be one of the most timeless games ever, because, like, even people who only played it, like, very recently, they still tend to like it. But anyways, more on topic. My second version of Chrono Trigger is... where's it at? Right there. It's on the DS. And I picked it up kind of on a whim, and I was pretty glad to get it, actually. Like, I was pretty pleased with it, because the PlayStation version, of course, was it wasn't the best port ever. So, I mean, I liked it when I played it, but it was always a little hard to get into, and playing the DS version, which is just so much better, it kind of makes it apparent just how much of an effect having, like, long loading screens and stuff has, because it really killed the PS1 version of the game in retrospect. I mean, I didn't even realize how much it did it at the time, but it really kind of takes you out of the experience, and I don't know. That just really kills it for me. So, I mean, I played the heck out of the DS version, and I really enjoyed it. I probably played it way more than I ended up playing the PS1 version. So anyways, the other Final Fantasy Chronicle games is, of course, Final Fantasy IV. Now, Final Fantasy IV and me, we go way back. I probably told the story like a few times by now, but originally, Final Fantasy IV. Well, I mean, let me start from the beginning. So, back in the day, I played my Super Nintendo a lot. I still got it. I think it's downstairs somewhere. I think it's actually my only system that's not hooked up here somewhere. But anyways, so I would rent Super Nintendo games every weekend. We went to this little store that eventually ended up closing down, which was a little sad because we went there a lot, and I'm actually almost not really sure why it closed. 'Cause I mean, it was doing pretty good. Like, I remember even going to like some special events there where they had stuff for like movie releases and stuff. Like, they had an event there for the Power Rangers movie, and they had an event there for, what was it, Batman Forever? Whatever the Batman movie with George Clooney was. They had an event there for that. So, I mean, I thought they were doing pretty good, but they eventually closed down. But anyways, the whole point of the story is eventually we ended up going, we switched to this other big video store, and they had this huge selection of Super Nintendo games. So I was like, oh my god, what have I been missing all this time? I had no clue what to rent first. And I got kind of drawn to, like, Final Fantasy, it was called Final Fantasy 2 then. It kind of caught my eye. And I saw this package, this, Final Fantasy, and had like a sword for the T, and like I flipped over the package and I looked on the back, and there's like screenshots of like this knight like walking along a castle and stuff, and I was at that point, and to some degree still today, I was pretty much obsessed with like knights and medieval stuff, and so I mean I picked it up, and I mean from that day on forward I've been like completely obsessed with RPGs and, well, JRPGs more. So I mean, back then that's not something you really had to specify at all because there was no other kind of RPG really. But I mean, that's not really the case these days. But so yeah, that's my story with Final Fantasy IV. It's kind of what really got me started and set me on the path to the gamer that I am today. Even though I was gaming a lot before then, anyways. So, there's that version of the game. I never owned the Super Nintendo version, so this is the first version of Final Fantasy IV I ever actually owned. So, I mean, I was glad to have that. And then years and years later, they came out with... Let's see if I can get this here. The Final Fantasy IV Complete Collection. So, I mean, given my past with Final Fantasy IV, I pretty much had to own this thing. I mean, I'm glad I picked it up. I mean, I think I haven't played every version of Final Fantasy IV. I don't own it on Game Boy Advance. I never played the DS remake either, although I always kind of wanted to. But I think the PSP version is probably the definitive version of Final Fantasy IV, and of course it came with the after years as well, which was originally released in chapters as WiiWare. I never ended up playing that, but I was always kind of intrigued by it. So, I mean, I had to have Final Fantasy IV, the complete collection, and I mean, I replayed it and I loved it. So, no regrets there. It even came with these nifty little things. There's like these little character playing card things, and most of them are upside down. So, yeah. Extreme close-up. Anyways. Moving on. Let's see here. What else do we got? So, here we have Brave Fencer Musashi, and that's not actually a repeat game, but along with it, I don't know if I actually have it in here anywhere. This is usually where I keep most of my, like, promotional things or whatever. Or I guess I end up putting a lot of actual games in here just because I ran out of space. But along with Brave Fencer Musashi came a demo for Final Fantasy VIII. So I don't know if that would count as a repeat game, because I also, of course, own Final Fantasy VIII. But there's that. I don't actually have it in here. I'm not sure where I got it, but of course, that's not really one of the games that I would really worry about taking with me everywhere. I actually have right here the demo for Final Fantasy XII as well, so that's kind of in the same thing. It's a demo. That one came with Dragon Quest VIII, I believe. So that's kind of the same thing. I've got the demo, and then I got Final Fantasy XII itself, I believe, right here. It's kind of funny, actually, because in both cases, the game that the demo came with ended up being a lot better than the game that the demo was of, at least in my opinion. Which is kind of funny, because, I mean, it's like, this lesser-known game is like piggybacking on the big, shiny Final Fantasy game, and then the little game ends up being way better. So, let's see, where were we? Okay. Next up, actually, Lunar is a repeat game too, isn't it? So Lunar is one of those games, like, I originally didn't really know about Lunar until I just happened to rent it one time on a whim, and I was, like, immediately engrossed in it. Like, Lunar, I don't think it's as well known, or it gets as much credit as it deserves. I think a lot of people by now has kind of forgotten about it. But I mean, Lunar is one of those classics that, like, it's like an amazing game. Like, I don't think I've ever played a game with as much charm or personality as Lunar. So, this is of course the PS1 version, but that's not actually the first version of the game I owned. If we look over here again at my Game Boy case, in here I believe it is, we have, open up you. There we go. Lunar Legend. And that is a Game Boy Advance remake of the original Lunar. Now, the Game Boy Advance version doesn't really... Well, I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not anywhere near as good as the PlayStation version. They stripped out a lot of, of course, the voice acting and the FMVs, or I guess that's what they're called back then, and stuff like that. And I felt like the game was a lot easier than the PlayStation version, especially because they had this weird bug or oversight or something where the save files didn't actually have, like, it didn't save the variable for your current health and MP. So, like, whenever you loaded up the game, you would come back in with, like, full health and MP. So you could literally save anywhere, like in the middle of a dungeon, and then reload and instantly back at max and stuff. So, I mean, you could, like, purposely not exploit that, but sometimes, especially with mobile games, like, or portable, I guess would be the better word. Like, sometimes you don't have any option but to save and reload later. So, I mean, that was kind of odd. But anyways, so I owned Lunar Legend first, and I was pretty happy with that. Even though it wasn't as good as the original, it's still a fun game. It still has a lot of the charm and stuff. And then later, years later, I found Lunar in like a discount bin or something. And it was only like $10. So I mean, that was like a no-brainer for me. Like, I don't know how much Lunar actually goes for, but I mean, to me, it seems like one of those games that, like Suikoden 2 or Valkyrie Profile, that, like, if it's not going for like $200 these days, then, like, it probably should be. To me, at least, it's that level of classic. And it actually even came with this disc here, the making of, which, I mean, that was part of what really got me into it to begin with, because when I rented the game originally, it came with this, and I'm pretty sure that's the first game I ever played that had a making of behind it, and it was, I mean, I liked the game enough that I was really interested to see it, but anyways, moving on. What else we got here? I already mentioned the Final Fantasy VIII demo. Don't think I've got anything else. Oh, Final Fantasy Tactics. So that's a good one too. I think that's probably the last one I've got to mention. But yeah, so Final Fantasy Tactics is pretty much my my favorite game of all time. So I mean, I'm not really sure why it's in the very back here, but whatever. So yeah, I mean, I own the Final there are I own the PlayStation version of the game, of course. I played the heck out of it. I've got an entire memory card dedicated to Final Fantasy Tactics. I might actually have it in here somewhere. No, that's my second PS2 memory card. Weren't memory cards great back in the day? But anyways, so yeah, I mean, obviously I love Final Fantasy Tactics. That's another one of those games that I've done a full LP of it already. And of course, over here, it was another one of those no-brainer games that I just had to pick up. We got the PSP version of Final Fantasy Tactics, the War of the Lions, or the Lion War, or whatever they call it. So I mean, I was really interested in picking this up because it's like, not only is it like it wasn't just like a port, it was like a remastering. So like they completely retranslated the entire game, which was kind of an interesting effect. I believe I talked about that on the last episode of my Final Fantasy Tactics LP. But they did that, and they added in these nifty little anime cutscenes, which I thought were pretty cool. I really like the graphic style they used, actually. And they added some extra content and stuff like that, so I was pretty happy with it. I mean, I probably played the PSP version of the game for like close to, or maybe even more than 100 hours. I mean, I ended up mastering every class for my entire party. So there's that. I also actually own, that's another game that I own on the iOS. So I've got it on my iPhone, or my iPod rather. I don't think it really did as well on the iOS. Like the touch controls, I don't think worked very well. I think it actually would be pretty good on iPad, where you have more screen real estate, but I don't have that. So, but anyways, going back to the PSP version, one of the main reasons I actually ended up buying it was just because I wanted, like, to me, I thought it was exceptionally cool to take this game that I love so much, and then have a way to be able to kind of play it on the go. So with the PSP, I could literally take Final Fantasy Tactics wherever I wanted, and that to me was just really cool. I of course also have that with the iPod version, but yeah, I'm slowly making my way through it again on the iPod. But part of it is also that I very recently played through it again for my Final Fantasy Tactics LP. So I probably played through it 3 or 4 times in like the last year or so as it is. So I don't want to say I'm burnt out on Final Fantasy Tactics, but I played through it a lot, and the iPod Touch interface thing is not the greatest, so I'm not very far yet. But I think that's about it. I guess I could take a look at some of the stuff here, see if I'm missing anything. I don't think any of my other DS games are repeats. Doesn't look like it. I guess we could fire up the PS2, see if I got what I got in there. I believe it's probably Dragon Quest VIII. Yeah, so. Yep, there's that. What I got in the GameCube. I'm pretty sure that's, yeah, Metroid Prime. Probably don't have anything in the old PS1. I don't think I've used that at all since I got the PS2. Oh, here's my memory cards. Oh. Oh no, actually, I was gonna say that's not all of them. That's actually not even my main case of memory cards. That is my secondary case. I had 8 memory cards. But yeah, anyways, so I'm pretty sure that's all the games that I had to talk about. Let's see, I got a PS3 collection here. I'm pretty sure none of these are repeats. Nope. Okay, so well, I guess that is about it for this episode of Ramblings. So yeah. I guess that's about it. Later.